Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for being with us tonight. I'm so happy to see so many familiar and unfamiliar faces in this room, sharing the same interest, not to say love, for techno music and the scene. I want to thank OCTOV too for putting this event together and giving me the opportunity of being a part of it. And for sure, I want to thank the artists for accepting the invitation. So thank you. Tonight we are very lucky because we have with us the UK techno ambassador Perc and the well-established local figure Sila. And we are going to talk about the current state of the scene and more specifically about the dichotomy between DJ and producer status in an artist career. So if you have any questions or comments about it, just keep them for the end because we're going to talk for around 45 minutes and there will be a Q&A time at the end. So first I'm going to introduce a bit our guests. So Perc, you've been in the scene for more than 20 years or so.
Yeah, I've been working for like record distribution companies, record labels since 2002, and I've been a full-time sort of DJ producer, like with it being my only employment since 2007. So it's 12 years. Yeah. So, yeah.
And you've released 3 albums.
Yeah, 3 albums on my own label, and then singles at the start for a lot of different labels, and as time goes on, I'm focusing more on just my own label, Trax, rather than recording for other people. But yeah.
And your last EP is titled 3 Tracks.
Yeah, 3 Tracks to send to your ghost producer. Yeah,
so we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, that came out about a month ago, yeah.
Great. And so yeah, you founded Perc Trax, and you are releasing the work of artists such as Elsa, Trax.
Yeah, like obviously the label, this year is 15 years of the Perc Trax label, so yeah, a lot of artists come and go, and some stay for a long time, and some do one record and move on for various reasons. But yeah, the current artist is like Ansem from the UK, Scamalia from Serbia, Ghost in the Machine from the Netherlands. Who else? Timon, he's half Australian, half Russian, which is an interesting kind of mix. So yeah, there's regular artists at the label who keep coming back and doing different projects, and then there's some that just, especially the people that do remixes, they're normally established on other labels, and they'll just come for sort of one project at a time. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. And a few words about Sila too. You've been well established in Montreal now. You've been a resident for OCTOV, and you've been playing alongside artists such as Aneta, SNTS, Antigone. Do you want to say anything about your career?
First, thanks very much for having me. It's really an honor to be beside you tonight. And I don't really have anything much to add to what you just said, but it's really glad to be there tonight. So I'm going to try to answer it the best way I can.
We really want to thank you for being here with us tonight. And before we get started, how are you feeling today?
I'm okay. I played in New York last night in Brooklyn. So yeah, I'm a bit tired, but it's okay. It was a 2-hour set, so not too long. But yeah, I'm okay.
Ready for tonight, I hope.
Just about, yeah.
And Ursula, how are you feeling today?
Good, thanks. We're doing well.
Okay, perfect. So before we go to the core of the discussion, I just have like a question about your perception of the scene. And I'm wondering, do you think nowadays it's still relevant to talk about the scene by dividing it, like between underground and mainstream?
Not really. I think these terms are they're open to interpretation. They're very flexible. They're very fluid. Obviously, especially the word underground is constantly, and it always has been used as a marketing tool to try and put some sort of credit to a release or something like that. But I don't know, everyone has their own sort of interpretations of what these words mean. For me personally, I don't know, because like if I don't know what is underground. If you're doing a party and you're not promoting it on social media and you're only using word of mouth or sort of paper flyers or text messages, then maybe that's kind of underground. But I think as soon as you're promoting something using any of the big social media platforms, I think then it's really hard to. I know that these platforms are useful and you can use them for free without having to pay for like sponsored posts and things like that. But I still think once you once you step across that line and you're using a lot of social media stuff to promote your music, I think you can be underground in your attitude, but I think you're still using these fairly mainstream tools to do it. But I don't know, everyone's interpretation is different. But I think to find something that's really truly underground, I think it's more now just like local scenes and things like that, word of mouth things, not people that are trying to immediately grow, nationally or internationally.
And you, Scylla, do you want to add something?
I think everything has been said. Not especially on this question. But.
Okay.
So, according to your experience in the scene and the environment or the scene you claim to belong to, do you think it's still possible for an artist today to generate excitement or to be successful only by being a DJ?
I think it depends a lot on their kind of background and who they are, and like there's people that are breaking through as just DJs. They don't produce, they don't run record labels at the moment. But these are also people that are working their social media very hard, especially their Instagram. So yeah, if you're someone that does well on Instagram, whether that's because you're putting up interesting content or you're someone that people find attractive, and what people want to see, your daily selfies or whatever, then yeah, you can grow a profile that way. And then once you've got that kind of Instagram thing, because this is mainly an Instagram thing I'm talking about, then yeah, you could become a DJ or you could become a fashion designer or you could launch something related to food, and you'll use the platform that you've built up on Instagram first. To break through and make a career as a DJ purely on just putting mixes online and keeping your sort of keeping a low profile, I think is pretty hard. But I guess people do it. But it also depends what you're trying to do. If you're trying to actually build a career where it becomes your full-time job, or you're just wanting to be a figure in your kind of local scene, there's different kind of definitions of what people are looking for and what people would classify as success.
Once again, it's more or less, I was about to say the same. I think it all comes down to people's choices in the end.
Yeah.
It depends of whether you want to make it a career. If you want to make it a career as a touring artist, it's very hard, I think, nowadays to make it only being a DJ. I think being a producer in the meantime is a really really important skill set. It's a strength, obviously. In our circuit, I think the only DJ which is not a producer I can think of is Ben UFO, maybe.
Yeah.
I think he runs the Hessel Audio.
Yeah, so he's always had the kind of support of the other Hessel guys, and
absolutely. Yeah. So, but in the meantime, he's only DJ, but he makes it. It's like I would say state of the art. He tried to push us really far the boundaries, the exploration. I don't know. Yeah. So, which makes him a really great DJ, of course. But apart from Ben UFO, I can't really think of any techno DJ. I'm not talking about turntablists. It might be something different.
That's a bit different.
So
yeah, I think I think there are a few people. There's this kind of media thing now. There's this sort of term, the selector, which goes kind of through this sort of things like Deck Mantle in the Netherlands, and Resident Advisor got on this a lot. And there's almost a little feeling that which wasn't around a few years ago, where a DJ that only DJs and makes a conscious decision not to produce is somehow maybe a better DJ because they've devoted their entire time to it. When it never used to be that way. It used to be, like you had to have this skill set of being a producer and a DJ and maybe having your own label. But yeah, now, which is probably a good thing now, there is this little thing that, if there is some credit and you can sort of receive from just 100% focusing on DJing. So like, you'd say, well, every day I wake up and I look for music, not every day I go to the studio. So yeah.
Great. And now I'd like to talk more about your careers, since you are both DJ and producer. Are those two aspects, in your opinion, inseparable for you?
Are they inseparable? For me, yeah, they are. And I also have my label, but I'm not someone that's like some people will split their day up. They'll wake up and it's they'll do the emails at the start of the day, or they'll look for music, and they'll have like sections of the day when I'm doing everything at the same time. So I'm writing music whilst doing business for Perc Trax, whilst some promo will come in and it'll catch my eye and I want to listen to it. So yeah, I'm doing everything. And I think definitely the skill sets, especially between DJing and production, of course, they cross over. I think a knowledge of both helps both things. And yeah, if you're putting together podcast mixes and things like that, and if you're doing re-edits for a DJ set, then of course having some production skills is helpful. Yeah, I can imagine taking a break from one. I could take a break from everything and have like a year off if I wanted, but I couldn't imagine saying, I'm going to stop DJing to focus on production, or vice versa.
And do you think you would have been able to build your career on only one of those two aspects?
I think when I started gigging a bit more internationally and things, which was like, that started around sort of 2003, 2004. Yeah, I think I never really wanted to be. I was a DJ. I was producing before I was DJing, but I never thought of being a DJ as a career. I would go to clubs and rave and party and things like that, but I would never take a mixtape or a CD and give it to the promoter. I never did that. So the first gigs were labels that I was recording for were saying, we're doing a showcase in London, you live in London, and I was like, yes I do. And they said, okay, well then you can do the showcase because it's easy and we don't have to fly you or get you a hotel, you can just turn and play. So that's kind of how my first gigs came around, small things in London, and I was never pushing the DJ side of things too hard. Like the production was always my sort of primary thing, and the DJing came after that.
And you, Sila?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah.
Because I was just listening to.
Do you imagine building your career on only one of those two aspects?
Well, my path might not be the same as Ali's one, because I haven't released on any label yet. So, but I think in nowadays industry, it's really hard if you want to make it a career. If you're just a DJ, you have to be like pretty great DJ at least on on the technical standpoint, or be very good with your Instagram, as you said. Yeah. But that's not really our thing, I think. No. I always thought the same, that focusing on the production remains it's the most important part of the process. It's really what defines you as an artist. It's like your true self, so it's something much more personal maybe than the purely the DJ aspect. So, yeah.
Okay, and do you think it's too much if we say that it's a standard today to be both DJ and producer? Like a standard to me.
You have to be both.
Yeah.
No, I don't think you have to be both. The main problem is if you're looking to make any kind of career out of it, or even just enough, making some sort of money to buy studio equipment or to buy more music or things, there's the imbalance between how much money there is for DJing compared with how much money there is from record sales and things like this. Like years ago I knew a few guys, this is when vinyl records were selling a lot more, who they didn't want to DJ. They had no DJing skills. It was when everyone was playing vinyl, so they didn't want to go through the learning process of getting good on vinyl, and they had this sort of maybe slight anxiety issues. They didn't want to be in a club in front of people standing there. So and back then, if you were a producer on the right labels, and these were labels that were trustworthy and were paying you for your sales, then you could make a career, like just selling records. You'd have to have a steady output of material and not DJ. And these are the guys actually the clubs wanted, because this guy had never DJ'd. The clubs were, we want your first gig, we want to be the first person to book you. And a few guys like Chris McCormack, he's never played a gig in his life. He's like a UK producer who was really big, I don't know, sort of 10 years ago or so. And he had no interest in performing, and therefore the money being offered to him kept going up and up and up, but he still never took a gig.
He was paid with royalties, right?
Yeah, so he had his own label, which was selling vinyl. He was releasing his own music and music of other people, and he was releasing on a lot of other labels. So he was making this money. It was enough to kind of, pay the rent one room in a house with some friends and sort of that kind of life. It wasn't buying a big mansion house or anything. But I think now that has completely gone. I think unless you produce something and you have a massive hit, like a really big hit, then of course the money will come in. But I think if you choose not to perform, I think it's very hard to make any kind of full-time career out of it.
And you, Silas, since you want to get released, I think.
Yeah.
So, how do you find the balance between those two aspects?
Again, I think, as I said earlier, being a DJ really comes down to you have to, well, of course, to feel to build the right atmosphere in a venue. You have to. It's something really intuitive and maybe spontaneous, more spontaneous than the production process, which can take place over like days and weeks. So it's pretty different. Yeah, I think how can I say? Me personally, I just take time. If I feel like making this kind of music, I will just work on it. Well, I'm not going to try to force it. It's,
so you don't feel a pressure to produce?
Well, I think I don't want to put myself too much pressure. I will produce if I feel like producing. So it's all a matter of choices in the end. I think so.
Yeah.
Now I have a question more about production, because I feel like the new artist generation seems a bit pressured to be DJ and producer, and it feels like the music production pace can't stop accelerating, like it's always more and more and more. And do you think it's caused by the shifting way audiences consume music, meaning the reduced attention span, the 24/7 free streaming, download, etc.? Or do you think it's more the pressure comes from within the industry, meaning the need to be recognized by your peers as a producer, the competitive behaviors between artists, the growing pressure from labels, and the pressure to reach some standards? So from which
it's
side?
Quite a long question.
Yeah, sorry. Yes. From which side do you think the pressure comes from? Could be both.
I don't know. Yeah, I think it's. I don't personally feel any pressure to produce, but then I've kind of got to a point I'm kind of happy with. But if I was starting off, I think there's this. I think it's also social media driven. There's this thing of constant output and content, whether it's podcast mixes, announce you've got a gig, a video of you playing the gig from the weekend before. There's people that just will make this like a simple 10-second loop on Ableton, and straight away they're filming it. They've put it on Instagram or it's on SoundCloud. So they're constantly looking for this they're constantly wanting to put some kind of content out there, whatever it is, on whatever quality it is. And they're also looking for kind of confirmation from their peers that, this is amazing or whatever, and it gives them that little boost. But I'm someone that's never felt like I have to release every track I've made, and there's tracks I didn't release, and looking back on them, I'm glad that I didn't release them. So I think there's now more pressure than ever to just constantly sort of pump up your profile, when there's a lot to be said for kind of keeping your head down and waiting until you've got something finished and you're happy with, and not just putting demos online constantly.
So do you say it's kind of the need to be under the spotlight all the time?
Yeah, I think there's I think people are all just, I don't know if they're competitive with each other. I guess it all depends on the individual. I'm not particularly competitive with my sort of peers, but I want to keep pushing myself forward, and there's goals I set myself, but they're not in terms of overtaking other people. It's just what I want to achieve myself. But I can see some of the younger producers who come through, and I think they're putting pressure on themselves to just hit certain milestones, their first international gig or their first vinyl release, or certain even like social media numbers and followers and things like that. There's pressure now for that.
And don't you think it can inhibit creativity, when you need to just produce and produce? Maybe sometimes you just rushing things a bit.
Yeah, of course. There's I think creativity can be squashed in that way. But for younger producers and newer producers, I think, there's pressure from all their peers, and I think if they have a bit of success, I know sort of medium sort of sized hit record, just within techno, not like a pop hit or anything. I think there's a lot of pressure for them to follow that up, and if you do that too quickly, you're always going to end up just doing a copy of this track again. And this is something I've had in the past where I've tried to not constantly do like new versions of my more successful tracks and things like that. But I think there's a lot of pressure on at the moment. And as you said, people's attention span is much lower. And like some artists, established artists can get away with, this is their first record for 2 or 3 years. But I think some new producers would think if they had a successful record and waited 2 or 3 years to follow it up, they'd be forgotten about before they got around to the follow-up.
And about that, and this constant need to produce, do you think it could be the reason why we have like an upsurge in ghost producing? I'm sure you have an opinion about that, given your last EP title.
Yeah, the ghost producing one is it's a kind of very multifaceted issue, and there's everything from, with ghost production, there's everything from you could just go to a site, listen to 100 tracks that some producers made and go, like track number 30 I like, and you'll buy that track. So it's not made with you in mind, it's just someone's made a track, you buy that track, it's removed from the site so that no one else can have it. You pay for it and you can rename it, call it what you want, do some artwork, say you made it yourself, release it. That's the kind of the furthest example of ghost producing, and it goes right down to actually just, if you don't have technical skills but you have a lot of ideas, is sitting next to someone in the studio and saying, okay, I want it to sound like these 3 records I brought with me, and then you would do all the production, and I'd just say, okay, I like that bit, go back to that bit.
So you can try to learn, or
so that's more of a learning process, and hopefully the person would pick up a little thing and say, how do you do that? I like that sound. And so there's different levels of it, but I think it's a shortcut, I guess. If you don't want to learn and don't have the patience to learn sort of production stuff, or you just have no interest in it, you maybe no confidence or no interest in it, or you're someone who, because of Instagram or something, you've gone from no gigs to a really busy schedule, you probably don't have time to do that learning process that I did when I was 14 or 15 and wasn't going to play another gig for like 5 years at that point. So there's different reasons why people do it. I think the last thing I'll say about ghost production, really, the saddest thing for me about ghost production is producers, and I won't name any names, but producers who are very skilled, very talented, have years of making great music on their own without anyone's help, and now they've got to a point where they're too lazy to make music themselves. And also they've got a busy schedule of DJing, they've got a family and children, so yeah. They've got the skills, they've proven many times they can make great music, but they're going to someone else now because they've kind of lost the passion to do it. Because you can't really ghost DJ. Like you have to, if it's a DJ gig, you have to be there yourself. But so if you've got 10 gigs a month, you have to go to the 10 gigs a month. There's no way you can get someone else to do it. But if you want to release an EP a month, you can get someone else to do that for you. So that's the point, yeah.
Actually, I've seen a video of Paris Hilton ghost DJing.
Yeah, there is some like that kind of thing. There is ghost DJing at that point, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Who is she?
Do you think it's a question of generation? Like, you talk about laziness, you talk about maybe the lack of confidence. I don't know what the reasons are for people who choose to take a ghost producer, but do you think it's a question of generation? Because I feel like the oldest generation experimented and they had to draw a path. And now the new generation can technically learn how to do things because there's schools, there's tutors all over the web, and still.
I don't think it's a generational thing. I don't think it's a worse problem now than it was 5 or 10 years ago. Maybe with some sort of the Instagram type DJs that I think a lot of it is also the manager of these artists is driving it. So the manager will say to the artist, you've got to get the next step for you is to release an EP, and they're like, but I don't know how to produce. I'll start learning, and it's like, well, I don't want to wait 4 years. while you learn. I know this guy that has got a studio, and we can have a meeting with him and work on it. But I don't think it's got any better or worse. I think it's spoken about more just because of social media, and rumors can fly around the world when before they'd fly around the local kind of scene. So I think it's more visible in terms of how it's been discussed, but a lot of that is sort of gossip without any true facts behind it.
Since we are talking about generation, I'd like to ask you a question, Sila, since you belong to the new generation of producers. Can you tell us more about how and why you get into production?
Well, by passion first, I guess, as every other DJ/producer. I mean, what Ali just said about the industry is, I think, exactly the same. I think I'm 31 now, so I kind of saw the change with the Facebook coming up, and so yes, it's true. I guess the social media have really changed the way of doing business in the music industry as well, of course. So yeah, maybe as you said, maybe some, again, not all the younger generation, maybe some are not in the music maybe for the right reasons. Well, I don't know, or just looking for maybe instant gratification, or or shortcuts, as you said. So yeah, I don't know. I think I have really a lot of respect for music producers and music production. So I prefer, again, I think you have to. It's either you feel it or not. If you feel like producing, well, just go with the flow, and if you don't feel it, like just wait until you feel it. I don't know.
Thanks. And after what we just said, I think that what to go through what you are saying, it's what's important from the artist's point of view is the authenticity and like the reasons why you're doing what you're doing, and you need to be authentic to yourself, to your audience, and as we said, social media raised the question of authenticity. And so I'd like to ask you, how do you use social media and stay authentic?
Last night I played with Lucy from Stroboscopic Artifacts, and we met today for breakfast, and we were talking about this. Like he was quite late to Instagram. He was on he joined Instagram quite a few years after I joined, and he's probably been on for like 2 or 3 years now, which is quite new compared with some people. I think if you want to stay authentic on something like Instagram or Facebook, I think it's just putting up content. And I hate the term content, but it's better than me saying pictures and videos or listing all the different things you can put up. But it's just having content that's directly relatable to what you do. So, like, obviously the sort of news announcements are my new EP is coming out next week or this weekend. I'm in Canada or whatever. That's the kind of good stuff, and I'm happy with that. And if you want to use a photo of yourself to promote that, I think that's fine. If that's the way you want to go and you're confident in the picture or how you look. But I think just, that kind of thing of just putting up a picture of your morning cup of coffee and just saying, it's good morning everyone, here's my coffee and here's my dinner and here's me in a bikini. That's the stuff that it's not really, I guess you can say I'm playing in Australia, so here's me on the beach, but it's stretching it too much for me, like.
It's more personal stuff than actual music.
Yeah, I think, if these people had 2 accounts, they had one for their personal stuff and one for their career, then you could they would split things up. But like pictures of, it's hard because people couldn't act. I can't tell people how to act and how not to act. But like pictures of your pets or your children to promote your music, if you want to do that, that's fine. But it's not kind of the way I roll. Yeah,
I must agree.
And so, in those situations, when you post about your music, do you feel social media is a way to build a community with your audiences? Do you feel it's also a tool to get feedback on what you're doing?
It's interesting to get feedback on last night's DJ set and see what people are saying about that. But then it's a very dangerous thing psychologically because as the human condition, where you have 99 people saying that you rocked it last night, and one person saying they were really disappointed and they wish they hadn't bothered to come and see you, and that one bad review is the one that sticks in your head forever. So like it's really I think it's dangerous to go looking for too much feedback about yourself. But yeah, in terms of building a community, I think it's great if that's what it is. It's actually a community, but it's very hard on social media to know who is trying to build things on a local level or within or trying to promote a certain genre that they believe in, and who is it's more like a route towards self-promotion. I think it's a very fine line there. Yeah.
And Lucilla, how do you use social media for your career?
Well, I try to use it in the best way I can, I would say. Again, it's as I said earlier, for the music production part, I think it's a bit the same. I try to work the same with the social medias. I mean, if you don't feel like posting something relevant, some relevant content, I just don't do it. You know, it's that's okay. I mean, me personally, I don't want to be posting not interesting stuff every day, just to get attention. It's not relevant. I mean,
yeah, I think a lot of it is also driven by artists that have either general managers for their whole career or social media managers. So they'll be saying you have to post one thing a day. If you're doing a gig, you have to do, preparing the music at home, something about traveling, something saying you've arrived in the city, maybe something after the gig, and then a few days later, like a video or something of you playing it. And you see these trends. You'll see an artist will do a certain type of post that does really well for them, and then it's like a sort of micro trend, and other artists will do a very similar type post because people are establishing these kind of successful kind of ways of working. So all the main managers are watching each other.
Yeah. And I just want to come back to the feedback thing, because the real question behind it is like, how do you measure your success?
What do you mean, personally, or for a release or a gig or something, or
whatever?
I don't know. There's so many different variables. Like, just take a record. Is it the amount of vinyl copies you sold? Is it the amount of streams on Spotify? The amount of downloads? If you got a review on Resident Advisor, was it 0.2 of a mark higher than the one you got 6 months ago? Does that show some kind of progress? I think for me personally, if we're talking music, it's the reaction from the people I respect, my peers. Of course, that's important to me. But also, there's tracks I made that I'm really excited by that I only play a few times. For some reason, I play them out, and it's whatever. It's not somehow I don't keep reaching for it in those kind of panicking moments. So a DJ set is not the track I grab. And there's other tracks that I would play every gig if I wanted to because I love them. So I think how I feel about a track or something 6 months or 12 months after it's released is kind of the variable of the way of measuring success. And yeah, if you press all the vinyl copies, if you sell all the vinyl copies and repress it, yeah, that's nice. But yeah, sales doesn't mean a release is great or anything. It's just, yeah. Because
I'm wondering, like, do people still come to you after the gig to say it was awesome, or like, how do you build a relationship with your audience elsewhere from the social media?
Well, yeah, social media is obviously a very obvious way that people will do feedback on the event page, or they'll write to you directly, or they'll be posting videos and things like that. And if you check your phone after a gig and there's like 20 or 30 like Instagram stories, like little things people have tagged you on, that's nice. But yeah, the direct feedback at a gig. If you're playing the closing set and the party's finished and the bouncers are trying to throw everybody out and people are sort of ducking around the bouncers to shake your hand or say they enjoyed it, or they also saw you a month ago somewhere else, and yeah, that's really nice. But as I said, yeah, I don't go around the audience asking people what they thought of it. It's not that kind of thing. But yeah, instant feedback is always good. But yeah.
Since we are talking about feedback and people reaching on social media, I know there's like a whole debate around the track ID thing.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
It's a hard one. I see both sides of the debate. If you're a young producer and a big DJ plays your track, you want people to know they played it, and it's good that you share the kind of music around and help other producers kind of come up through the industry. But at the same time, with DJing, it's if you're a real digger and you're going through like all the digital sites and Discogs and all these places for music, there's certain tracks you want to play more than once before like not everyone's playing them, but you can sometimes see, like I did some sets a few years ago with Truss, and like some of those tracks, like someone did a set like 2 weeks after one of our sets, and like about half of our set was in their set, and like when you get extreme examples like that, it's a bit annoying. But I don't know. If someone asks me for a track idea, I normally tell them. But normally when I put a mix up, especially if it's one recorded at a club or a festival, I won't immediately put the track list up, which is maybe a bad thing, but that's how I do it.
And do you have an opinion about the track ID thing?
Not really, to be honest. Not really.
Yeah, as I said, I can see both sides of the argument, and both sides are correct. But it's hard.
So behind the track ID and like the relationship building with the audience, it's a question of receptivity, affinity between the artist and his audience. And since you are public figures, as we said, it's also a question of image with social media and stuff. So what if we go back in time, to the time DJ were anonymous, and imagine you were proposed to play in a club unannounced? How would you feel about that?
It was an event that people bought a ticket for, and the lineup wasn't announced. So they knew it would be DJs of, could be anyone.
Yeah.
I think it would be an interesting concept. That comes down to trust. You're trusting the promoter, and like if it's a techno promoter, you hope they're going to be booking techno DJs and things like that. As a DJ myself, I would do it, yeah. But and I remember back in the day when there was no social media and you didn't know what DJs would look like. The DJ that you wanted to see, you'd see on the wall. He's playing at 3 a.m, and then at like 10 to 3, you'd see a guy come into the booth, and he's like, "Oh, is that him, or is that his manager, or is that the sound engineer?" And it was all very exciting to see people. And this was before camera phones. This sounds like I'm so old now, but I don't remember anyone really taking cameras. So like when people actually had cameras and stuff. I don't remember people taking cameras to clubs to take pictures of DJs in the same way that they do with their phone now. So it was all much more mysterious. And like a DJ would put out like a press photo, or they'd do a photo shoot for an interview in one of the magazines. And those photos would define the public's perception of how the artist looks, even 10 years later. Where now, obviously, we're talking about Instagram. Some DJs are putting up selfies every day, so you constantly know what they look like. When I remember someone like Green Velvet, at one point there was like a very famous press shot of him, and that's how everyone remembered him. Even like 10 years later, there was no new pictures of him, so it's just, it's interesting. Times have changed, but
I prefer to know what they sound like.
Yeah,
because actually doing something like that would put the music in the center of attention instead of the image or the artist himself.
Yeah. But as I say, if you do that thing where you know your favorite artist is coming on at 3 a.m, and they change DJs at 3 a.m, and then the guy who's playing, you're thinking, is that, like, he's not playing what you expect him to play, then you start thinking, is that actually who, whatever, but it's the old times.
And my last question, still about the relationship between DJ and audience, DJ and producer. We know like there was a golden age for DJ, like when I think about Larry Levan, David Mancuso. Back then, and they were kind of sanctified. So it was like the club owner trust the DJ to fill the club, and the audience would trust the DJ to blow their man each time. Yeah. And I was wondering, so it's about loyalty, confidence, etc. So how would you feel about being given a residency, for example, at Corsica Studios, because I know it's your favorite place in London?
I'd happily have a residency if you mean like once a week or once a month. I would do it once a week, but the two things stopping me is, one, I wouldn't want people to get bored of me. So every week then attendance is going down and down and down. And also, of course, the reason you don't hear so much about residencies these days, it gets in the way of playing other places. And it's all about, building up a fan base, or just people appreciating your music in different cities or different countries. So if you're permanently playing London, then you're going to miss out on playing other places.
So you'd rather keep traveling?
Yeah, I think so. I wouldn't mind a residency if it was like maybe playing like one night a month in a club for a year, like a sort of 12-month kind of residency. I think that'd be quite fun. But I wouldn't commit every weekend to one club. I think, that would sort of dent what I do in other places.
Okay. And Ursula, how would you feel about having a residency here in Montreal?
Well, I think that would be something interesting because, again, I'm not established as Perc is, of course. So I think I'm still at a certain step where I would learn a lot. It would be good for experience, of course, and I'm not traveling abroad as well, so it's different, of course. But it would be an interesting experience, of course. Yeah.
One thing about the residency. Sorry, I started off as a resident in London, so I played every Saturday afternoon. So it was like an after party for the Friday night events in a basement club that had a capacity of 60. That's the most people they could have, 60, and they'd maybe have about 20 people upstairs, like on the street, just hanging around and drinking and smoking. So I started off doing every Saturday, and that went on for about 2 years. So but nobody else wanted me to play anywhere else. So it wasn't like I wasn't taking gigs away from somewhere else. But yeah, I did do that and sort of build up the audience. And there was other residents at the club. Rebecca was a resident there as well, and Dax J. Like it's really weird how we all came out of this little club, but yeah.
And do you feel it's a way to build a strong relationship? Like, is it the same audience each time?
There were like regular people that came every week, and then other people you'd never see again, but they'd come once or twice and things. No, because it was the club only had a capacity of 60 people, so you could only if you were building, it was at a fairly slow rate. You weren't going to suddenly be playing to 500 people all the time, and it would grow and grow and grow. But it was an interesting thing. So it was more of a social thing. Like when the after party finished, we'd then go out to a proper Saturday night together. So it's kind of like the most I've been, I don't know, in a kind of scene, like a crew, a kind of local crew is a good way of putting it, where now I'm more sort of individual and do my thing. I'm not always hanging out with the same 10 DJs, yeah.
Well, thank you very much. So now if you have questions or comments, just let me know, raise your hands, and I'll bring you the mic.
Thanks to both of you for the discussion and for hosting. I saw one of your tweets the other day about this whole Red Bull thing that really I found quite cool. For those of you who haven't seen the tweet, it's kind of like a quotation like "shit, Red Bull," because Red Bull Music Academy is no longer a thing. Like it's over. And you were kind of like quoting like, shit, Red Bull like let us down, what are we gonna do? And then you're kind of like, whatever happened to just like building labels and collectives and like projects like from the ground up and kind of slowly. And I've been thinking about that a lot in terms of like, what kind of sponsors and quote unquote sponsors and kind of like builders and like things to plop us out of our sort of like thing we're involved with as local DJs. And I wanted to get your maybe sense about kind of like those kind of corporate relationships, and even like not only just brands, but like when things become kind of like, when like a party becomes a big brand, like I don't know. Just comment on that tweet, basically.
Yeah, I think... Yeah, like someone replied to my tweet saying it was a really boring thing to say, but it's like it's to me it makes much more sense to build things up steadily. Like I didn't have one hit and go from like 1 gig a month to 10 gigs a month. I never had that kind of flash point where my whole career sort of flipped in a matter of a few months that some artists do have. So everything for me in Trax is built very slowly. I think if like there's sort of 3 models. There's built in the UK. You can build your thing up slowly, and like, if you make a bit of money, you don't go out and just splurge it on some big party and like drugs or whatever. You just build up your label steadily, which is what I've done. Then there's the kind of corporate thing of trying to get sponsorship, as you were talking about, in Red Bull and things like that, which is fine. But at any point, the corporate company can kind of pull the carpet away and just say, okay, we're done. Like now we're going to go from electronic music into hip hop or something like this, and they'll just change, and then if you haven't put down any roots and foundation yourself, then you're in trouble. And also in the UK, there's quite a few labels that actually just try and do things that are more arts-based, and they get arts funding from the government, and they do things in galleries. So they're basically doing raves, but they're making them out to be, so art events that have some kind of community value as well. But I guess it also depends on the individual, because Perc tracks, the artists of Perc tracks are mainly young or kind of slightly middle-aged guys. Like, brands aren't queuing up to work with me. That's the thing. Like, if you, it's an obvious example, but they're kind of Peggy Gow or something like that. She must have her management every day must be saying, okay, we've got 10 offers for you. Which one do you want to do? She's just announced a collaboration with Ray-Ban. She's got her own set of sunglasses. They're the kind of offers that are never going to come to me and my artists. So we have to build our own thing up. And yeah, like I've played some events sponsored by Red Bull. A lot of Russian events are sponsored by cigarette companies and things like that. And if you want to play these events, you could get the offer and then ask your agent to talk about what's expected of you. Because I played in Moscow and had to pose holding a pack of cigarettes like in front of a big kind of advertising thing when I don't smoke myself. So it's kind of ridiculous. And if I'd known about that before I'd got on the plane, then maybe I wouldn't have done it, or maybe I would have done it, because at the time I needed the money. And so I don't know. It's at what point do you draw the line and say I won't do that? And is working with a cigarette company better than working with with Shell or one of the big oil companies? I don't know. But it's like for someone like me, the whole corporate thing doesn't come into it too much, apart from the parties I play. And if you're gigging in Europe and you don't want to play any parties that are sponsored by Red Bull, you're actually going to struggle to play many festivals, because they have the sort of the event sponsorship thing, which is still going, even though Red Bull is stopping the Music Academy. They have a hand kind of basically everywhere, so you'd have to do a lot of research and be very confident in the fact that you could get gigs elsewhere to never play a gig that had some kind of corporate involvement.
I was curious about, you mentioned you started working 14 or 15 with playing around with machines for producing. I was curious if you could talk about if there's an event or catalyst, producers, DJs, something in your life that triggered your interest in that, and when you started producing techno, the same thing.
Yeah, so I was in rock bands, and so more like indie bands is a better way of saying it, from a very young age, like 11, 12, 13, playing bass and singing. Thank God there's no recordings of that remaining. But I did my exams when I was just coming to 16 in the UK. And at the same time, my band split up. We had, I know it sounds stupid to be 15 and say you had musical differences, but that's what split the band up. And all my bandmates continued, but without me. And then I did really badly in my exams, because I'm not a particularly academic type person. So to kind of cheer myself up, I decided to sort of make music. And I just read a little bit about UK kind of hardcore and rave, and that idea that you could make a hit record in your bedroom, in your mum's kitchen or whatever. It's not hard. But even then, those artists had a few £1,000s of equipment, which was still much more money than I had. So when I did badly in my exams, I bought my first drum machine. I had some guitar pedals and stuff from the time in the band, so I was kind of running the drum machine through the pedals and making kind of distorted techno-ish sort of stuff. So that was my kind of catalyst to do it. And I was listening to a lot of sort of early Warp stuff and things like that. So after a bit, I kind of went more down the sort of ambient thing. And my first demos went to Warp and never got any reply or anything like that. So that's how I started. But from doing that at 15 to releasing my first record when I was, like 26, it's quite a long journey. It's not like, I started producing and 6 months later I had a track out. Also, when I started producing, there was no digital, there was no download. So now, like, I could sign a track from anyone, put it out, and give them a chance, see how it does. But back then, for a label to take a chance on a brand new artist, press, manufacture, promote a record, it was quite a big commitment. So it's much harder to get a career started than just chucking something on SoundCloud or starting your own digital label and putting it on Beatport. It was a whole different game back then.
So thanks for doing this tonight.
Thank you.
So, question I asked regarding what you previously discussed. I'm going to ask a question straightforward. How do we claim back the term underground? How do we literally claim back the underground? What I mean by that is, recently, the way we see that electronic music is being consumed, it's a bit diluted. When you understand where it came from, the origins, it was basically a marginal community, marginal population, basically that created their own environment for their own consumption. They recognize between each other. And today, yes, the music seems similar, so we understand where it comes from. But in terms of consumption, in terms of, I'm going to use the expression safe spaces, it's different. There's a bit of lack of respect to it in a certain point. Well, that's the judgment of value from my part. But for you, how would we claim, for example, if in terms of compromise as well, when you're selecting your gigs, what is your cut lines where you say, okay, this is too much. I'm not going to do Coachella, for example, etc. Yeah. What is your cut line, and how do you, not necessarily that I suspect you have a strategy, but how do you keep a certain standard and say, okay, this is too much. This is not something I associate myself with. You had previously talked about it in the previous answer. So,
I don't know. So in terms of the first bit, reclaiming the word underground, I think is impossible. It's so open to interpretation. Everyone has such a different notion of what it is that the people that like some people in my position talk about underground and will moan about someone like, I don't know, Marco Carola and these kind of guys, and they say they're not underground. And then people like Marco Carola and Nico Moldaber, they look at the EDM guys and say, oh, they're not underground. So everyone's got these different levels of things. I don't think you can claim the word back because it's been twisted and used so much for marketing of all types of music, and I think it's just impossible to get back. In terms of my cutoff line for events, generally, I want to see the lineup for any event I do, and if I feel like I wouldn't be comfortable on that lineup, or the audience might not really, they don't have to all be like adoring fans or anything stupid like that, but at least have some notion of what I do and appreciation of what I do. I think if I'm going to stick out like a sore thumb, I'll maybe get my agent to ask the festival why me with all this lineup that doesn't really fit with me. So I do that. I think like I know so many artists that say I'd never play Vegas or I'd never play Electric Daisy Carnival, and then the offer comes in and they do it, and it's like, are they selling out by doing it because they're saying that they're doing something they said they never would do, or are they somehow getting in there and somehow introducing some of these people to their music, or somehow subverting the whole thing by actually being involved? I remember a certain artist I know very well. I was in the car with him, and someone said, has he ever played Awakenings? And he said, Awakenings won't touch me. I'm too underground. My music's too tough. I'm proud that they won't go near me. And then a year later, the booking comes in and he plays it. So, it's the way it goes. It kind of, it brings into notions of selling out and things like that as well. But for me, I wouldn't play an event if it was too heavily sponsored by companies that I had some kind of issue with, moral issue or whatever, then I wouldn't do it. And if I just felt uncomfortable with the lineup, then I wouldn't do it. But the problem is, like a lot of these people that I don't particularly like musically, and I really don't like their music, I don't like the way they promote themselves online. You meet them, and they're the loveliest people in the world. So it's like, and then there's people that make great techno, and I play their tracks out all the time, who I've met them and didn't really get on with. So I think you can't bring that personal idea, that personal kind of feeling into it. But if I feel uncomfortable about an event, then I won't do it.
Yeah. So you guys touched on it a little bit in the meat of the interview, but with now how the actual productions is being consumed by the audience through streaming and YouTube and these sites that are kind of they're devaluing the actual production as far as worth. And so, do you think the actual production value is kind of stagnating a little bit because people are just kind of putting out tracks for the purpose of getting the DJ gigs so they can pay their bills?
We'll both answer, but
can you just repeat it, please? I just want to be sure to.
Yeah. So basically, is because now music is basically free now with streaming, and it's very undervalued versus selling an album or a vinyl 25 years ago. So because of that, do you think the music is not kind of developing, or people aren't willing to take risks because it's not going to get them the gigs necessarily?
I think it really depends of the people, of individuals. I mean, you're running a label, so I guess you know it better. But some producers are really not taking risks. I don't know if it's the right way to put it, but they just go with their identity, I would say, and they're not trying to imitate some kind of popular sound. So it really depends again of the type of people, I guess. Some will try to reproduce what's working, but again, it's a shortcut, as you said. And I think that way you won't last as a producer, as an artist, because you don't really develop your own sound, your own identity. So, and this is what makes a difference, I think, in my opinion. So,
yeah, I think it's about. I don't know, for me personally, it's doing what I can that's still recognizable as techno, as in it can be. Perc Trax is a techno label. It will work on the label's release. It'll work in my sets. It'll work in other people's sets. But hopefully, it's pushing. It's hard to talk about your own music like this. But hopefully, I'm doing something that's got my own identity and isn't just. It's trying to do something different within the sort of parameters of what we know as techno. But I think generally, the quality of engineering and the technical side of the music has never been better on average, because all the YouTube tutorials, what you can do with sort of software and things like that. But I think the ideas, the fresh ideas and the innovation is probably lower than ever. And I'm not saying techno's dead. There's still amazing music out there, but you just have to dig for it. And with the internet and everything, it's a lot easier to get your music out there and get people to hear it. So therefore, someone like me hears much more music than I used to. So therefore, I hear, if the bulk of the music is not particularly innovative, I hear much more of that stuff, and it makes it much harder to dig for the good stuff. But the good stuff is out there. Yeah.
I think it's a great last word.
Okay.
So thank you everybody for joining us, and I hope you will be with us tonight to enjoy Perc and Scylla performances, and see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Sounds good. Yeah. Thank you.